Definitely different.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel once again. Today, I am actually going to be going over my experience and my overall opinion about the 2024 Street Bob. I had gotten my hands on this Street Bob actually back in August at a local Harley Davidson dealer. I do want to give my take overall of how everything was that day when I had rode it, and I am going to split it into 5 different categories. Some of them are going to be the rider comfort, ergonomics, weight, power, and the overall electronics, rider modes, if you will, that this bike is enabled by. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So overall, when I rode the Street Bob, at first I was not a fan of the bars, but as I rode the bike, it did grow on me, and I didn't necessarily have too many doubts or faults to really put down with it once I started riding. But right off the bat, if you are not used to ape hangers, this is something to consider if you are going to purchase this bike, because they do sit a little weird, and I'm coming from mostly the Yamaha Bolt / Iron 883 setup, which is virtually the same, and the bars are not necessarily drag bars, but they're kind of forward leaning. These bars are more faced towards being backwards. The bars are going to reach your hands a lot easier than the bars that are going to be on any of the bobber cruisers that have more of a forward-leaning rest position. The seat felt great. I didn't necessarily have any issues with the seat. I thought it was adequate. Could it be better? Sure. I wouldn't say you're going to do long-distance tours on this for extended periods of time, especially with a passenger, because my guess is your seat will definitely, or your ass will definitely get sore after a while. So you probably, if you're going to do long distance touring, I live in Southern California. If I was going to go from Orange County to Palm Springs, that's 100 to 200 miles. You're probably going to need to get an aftermarket seat. So if you are considering touring on this bike, just consider that when it comes to the seat. Otherwise, if you're just doing more local commuting, maybe 30 minutes or less, your butt is not going to get really irritated from the seat. The other thing kind of ties back into the ergonomics. So this bike has mid controls, but they're technically forward mid controls. So they may feel a little bizarre to you at first if you're coming from a bike setup that has mid controls already. I don't know why Harley kind of went with this half mid, half forward. Maybe they just wanted to get people that are brand new to riding, get their feet wet and see what it would kind of feel like if they were to get forwards. I think forwards, if you're over 5'10", are going to feel a lot more ergonomically comfortable for you versus if you were to just have the mid controls and be more cramped up on the bike. They do feel a little bit bizarre at first, but you do tend to let it grow on you and get used to it. The mirrors were good. Overall, they were clear and visible. I didn't have any difficulties there. I did adjust them before I had left on this test ride, but overall I thought that they were adequate. The brakes, stuff like that, they were adequate as well, the front and the rear. I'm not sure the exact specifications for these types of brakes. I don't really do spec videos, but they were adequate for what they needed to get done. Overall, the weight on this bike, I didn't feel as much, but I definitely felt it when I was turning or did anything of that nature. In a few moments here, I'm going to do a U-turn as this video proceeds on, and I can tell you that I did feel a little bit of the weight when I was U-turning on this bike. But other than that, if you're just riding in a straight line, you really don't feel the weight. I believe the wet weight is 655, fully fueled up. I don't know what it is when it's not fueled up, but we always consider when a bike is fully fueled up as being the true weights. So I believe it's about 655 pounds. Don't quote me on that, but that's the range of this bike when it comes to the weight. Does it feel top heavy? Does it feel like it'll tip over easily? Not exactly. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the lightest bike, So the maneuverability might be a little bit limited compared to my Sportster, but I wouldn't say that it's totally compromised. I would say my V-Strom was way more top heavy, and that was 500 pounds compared to 655. Because this has a low center of gravity, it's not as bad. When you're just coasting it and riding it, you really don't feel it. And even at stoplights or low speed maneuvers, you don't feel it as much, but you do feel it a little bit when you're doing tight turns, U-turns, stuff like that. So the power definitely comes on pretty well. I didn't crank on this bike like a lot. Like I only drove, a little over maybe 5 or 10 minutes on this ride. I think overall it was like a 15-minute ride. And luckily, Harley did not have to, ride with me. They actually that day just let me take it out on my own, and that was it. I really wish. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was just scared. Like, I don't want to crack up this bike, and it feels ergonomically different than what I'm used to. But I don't know why I didn't take it on the freeway. On the freeway, I feel like this is where this bike is going to shine. The torque on this bike, I believe, is like 120 foot-pounds, and I think the horsepower is close to 100. So this bike definitely, when you crank the throttle, when you want to go, it will pick up. I will say that the transmission on this bike is extremely smooth. Didn't necessarily have any issues with getting up to speed. I will say I didn't have as much fun on this bike, revving this bike out, as I do my Sportster, my Iron 883. And I have also ridden the 1200, which I will drop another video showing my comparison between the 883 and the 1200 and what I kind of picked up on when I rode it. But I will say this power band is very smooth. It's very linear. It's something where you definitely do have to be cautious about, how much throttle you do give it, because you don't want to jerk the throttle or whiskey throttle it, because it will take you. I mean, this is I think an 18 or 1900 cc displacement bike. So it does have the power. The electronics overall on this bike, so it doesn't have, this is the 2024 model, the 114, so it's not the 117 like the new upgraded versions have. Electronics overall are good. I believe it has a gear shift indicator, clock, odometer. It doesn't have cruise control from what I could remember. Again, this was a few months ago that I had filmed this, so I don't believe the 2024 models have that. I think they might have a few other electronics within the bike, but it has pretty much bare bones on the electronics aspect. It's pretty basic. It does have a fuel gauge, so it's going to let you know when your fuel is running low. And I believe it actually has a range of fuel, so it'll actually tell you how many miles before you go empty that you will need to go and fill up. I believe. Don't quote me on it, but that's from what I could remember that day. So overall, would I personally, buy this bike? Would I consider it? Do I think it's good for a beginner? That's a lot of questions right there. But I personally would just question if I would want to truly buy this bike or not. I wasn't a fan of the bar setup. However, you can always swap that out. You can also, invert the mirrors. You can flip them down and go that route as well. The fuel tank is, I believe, almost, if not the same capacity as the Sportster Iron 883. I think the Iron 883 is like 3.4, and this is 3.5 or 3.6. The MPGs, though, on this, I think you get a little bit more out of because it is a bigger engine. But would I overall buy this bike? I would consider it a yes. I think that it would be good for a little long-distance touring, which what I mean by that is staying within your state and maybe going a few hours away from your local area. I don't think that this would be like necessarily, a long distance tour like across countries or anything like that. I wouldn't really recommend that. I think that it would be a solid choice for a beginner as well. I don't think that the power comes on so much that a new beginner couldn't handle it. It may be a little bit intimidating at first because the bike is a fairly big bike. This is not a Sportster. So that is just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think overall it would be a good bike. And I think anybody that wants to get into riding should consider the Street Bob. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will be talking to you guys in the next video. Drop a like and a comment and consider subscribing as always. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.